What would you do if you were thrown into a pit filled with hungry lions for doing the right thing? Sounds like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, right? But this isn't fiction. It's the real-life biblical story of Daniel, a man whose faith placed him in the jaws of death, but who walked out without a single scratch. How did he survive the night? Why didn't the lions attack? And what was the secret behind Daniel's fearless faith? Stay with us as we dive into the story of Daniel and the Unseen Shield, a tale of courage, conviction, and the divine protection that still surrounds those who stand for truth. This is more than history. It's hope for anyone facing a lion's den in their own life right now. Long before the lion's den, Daniel was a young Jewish boy taken captive from Jerusalem by Babylonian forces. He was among the best and brightest, chosen to serve in the palace of King Nebuchadnezzar, the ruler of the most powerful empire of his time. But even as a foreigner in a pagan land, Daniel stood out, not because of his status, but because of his character. He refused to eat food that violated God's law. He interpreted dreams by the wisdom of heaven, not sorcery. And above all, Daniel lived a life of unshakable integrity. As a result, he gained favor with kings and rose through the ranks until he became one of the top leaders in the entire kingdom. But success often brings jealousy. By the time Daniel was an old man, probably in his 80s, he was serving under a new king, Darius the Mede, who ruled the Persian Empire. Darius loved Daniel. He trusted him so much that he planned to make him governor over the whole kingdom. But not everyone was thrilled. The other administrators and satraps, jealous and threatened, looked for any reason to bring Daniel down. They searched through his record. They examined his finances. They spied on his meetings. And what did they find? They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Daniel 6 verse 4. So they changed their strategy. If they couldn't attack his integrity, they'd attack his faith. The officials went to King Darius with flattery and deceit. "Oh, King Darius, live forever. Let's make a law that anyone who prays to any god or man, except to you, O king, for 30 days, shall be thrown into the lion's den." The king, unaware of the trap, agreed and signed the law. In the Persian kingdom, once a decree was signed by the king, it couldn't be undone. Not even by the king himself. And just like that, Daniel's faith became a crime. Here's where the story takes a bold turn. Daniel heard about the decree. He knew the risk. He knew the lion's den was now the consequence of his devotion. And what did he do? He went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Daniel 6 verse 10. Daniel didn't panic. He didn't hide. He didn't alter his routine. He kept praying openly, faithfully, courageously. Because Daniel feared God more than man. The conspirators were waiting. They stormed Daniel's home, caught him in prayer, and rushed to report him to the king. Darius was heartbroken. He realized he'd been tricked, but his hands were tied. The law was the law. Daniel had to be punished. May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you. Darius to Daniel, Daniel 6 verse 16. And with that, Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. A stone was rolled across the entrance. The king sealed it with his signet ring and walked away grieving. That night, While Daniel was in a pit of predators, the king was in a palace of peace, but unable to sleep. Imagine that moment. Daniel, lowered into a dark pit, the smell of fur and blood, the sound of growls, dozens of glowing eyes surrounding him. But the lions didn't move. They didn't bite. They didn't roar. They didn't touch him.
Why?
Because God sent his angel, who shut the mouths of the lions. All night long, Daniel sat in perfect peace, surrounded by death, but wrapped in divine protection. The unseen shield of God was stronger than the jaws of the fiercest beasts. At first light, King Darius ran to the den. Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to rescue you from the lions? Then came the voice he had longed to hear. O King, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me. Darius was overjoyed. He ordered Daniel lifted from the den, and Scripture says, no wound was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. Daniel 6 verse 23. Not a scratch, not a bruise, not a hair out of place. Daniel walked out of death like he had taken an evening nap. But the story didn't end there. Darius then ordered the men who had conspired against Daniel and their families to be thrown into the lion's den. This time, the lions didn't stay silent. Before they reached the floor, the lions overpowered them. Then Darius issued a decree to the entire empire. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and he endures forever. Daniel 6 verse 26. The God who rescued Daniel became known to the world because one man refused to stop praying. Lessons from Daniel's story. Daniel's story is powerful, not just because of the miracle, but because of the message it carries to us today. A. Stand for what's right, even when it's hard. Daniel didn't compromise, even when his life was at stake. His integrity and faith were non-negotiable. What are you willing to stand for? B. Faith is measured when it's tested. Anyone can worship when life is good. But Daniel's faith was proven when it was dangerous to pray. God doesn't always keep us from the lion's den, but he walks with us through it. C. God's protection is real, even when invisible. The unseen shield around Daniel was God's presence. You may not see it, but when you trust him, you're never alone. Angels still surround God's people. His hand still delivers. D. Our faith can influence others. Because of Daniel's obedience, a pagan king and an entire empire were exposed to the one true God. Never underestimate the ripple effect of your faith. Are you facing a lion's den? You may not be staring down literal lions, but your den might look like a hostile workplace, a tough decision with consequences, persecution for your beliefs, isolation in your stand for truth. Remember, you are not alone. The same God who shut the mouths of lions is still defending his people today. He is your shield. He is your refuge. And when you trust him, even the fiercest den becomes a place of peace. In conclusion, Daniel's story is not just an ancient miracle. It's a timeless reminder of what happens when faith meets fire and conviction meets crisis. He didn't fight the lions. He didn't beg for mercy. He didn't make excuses. He just trusted in his God. And because of that trust, a death sentence turned into a declaration of victory. You may be in a lion's den right now, facing fear, injustice, or opposition. But remember, your God is bigger than the lions, and He never leaves His children alone. If this story encouraged you, inspired you, or reminded you of who's really in control, then we invite you to walk with us on this journey of faith. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you never miss another story of hope and courage. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded faith is fearless and God is faithful. Until next time, hold your ground, say your prayers, and remember, even in the lion's den, God still reigns.